Hey everyone, this is Mikas coming at you with another market update video. This one's going to be focusing on the lower time frames, namely the hourly. So hence outlining more shorter time frame moves. If you haven't watched my medium time frame video, make sure to go check that out. That it kind of explains what these blue boxes are, the trend lines, where all that came from. But let's get started. So the first thing that I like to draw in is after a larger measure move like this, I always like to keep up with drawing some trend lines wick to wick or whatever like that to see what kind of pattern the consolidation time frame might be falling in. And I think I've come to a consensus, or like one possible option is that this consolidation period is currently falling in a ascending channel. The name of the game is the ascending channel is usually a redistribution pattern, which is relatively, leaning bearish statistically. So, just like on a general time frame, I think we could see maybe one more test of the top side of this channel, followed by a break, or we could also see a break of this channel at any point, as we've been barely crawling up above, like up along it, and every time you test one of these trend lines, it gets a little bit weaker. So there's that. So today's lower time frame analysis is going to be mostly focusing on using fib retracements and fib extensions. I'm trying to master this tool, especially on the intraday time frame, as I find it pretty useful in finding entries and targets. So let's get started. Let's start with a bearish perspective, as I am medium term bearish. Therefore, we'll be looking for an entry to hold, for the short term and for maybe even a little bit of a medium time frame. So if you are looking to hold for a little bit longer, make sure to check out my medium time frame video as I outline, a little bit lower of targets. This is going to be a little bit more of a conservative setup, focus on intraday swings, as that's what I am trying to focus on right now. So drawing a fib from the top of the last local high we had around 10.1 to the, the low of this wick that we had at around, 8,090. We can see that, let me just make sure that this is off. Yep. Let's get the intraday set up. Perfect. So this 0.5 to 0.618 region is always, a key level to watch. And as you can see, yesterday when we had that pump, testing the top of this channel was into that region, and we got a pretty hefty rejection. Let's throw on the EMAs, as I feel like they are pretty useful in this situation. You can see that rejection did come from the 200 simple moving average, so I'm probably going to be looking for something similar. However, we can draw up a sell zone. I am going to be denoting that by a purple outlined box, and that's going to be from here to around 9,093. Technically only up to the 0.618, but by extension, I think it is safe to say that we could come up to anywhere above that level. However, staying below the 0.786, as I feel like that's an invalidation level, so I would be setting my stop loss somewhere above here where it would make the most sense. But that's up to your own discretion. That's up to your risk management and stuff like that. However, in the near future, I am going to be looking for a short entry somewhere in this region, probably namely off the 200 simple. Maybe a second entry somewhere like close to this volume support, and maybe that trend line. We'll see how the momentum goes. Right now, we are, squeezing pretty hard up against this 0.236 level on a more major retracement. So we could technically see a pivot off of here, and I have a feeling if we see a pivot off of here, maybe another test, maybe one more test is all it takes for us to break this trend line. So maybe we could see a dump, another test of this bottom trend line, which I think is going to be one of my targets, but we'll get to that in a second. Otherwise, maybe we can see a little bit of a squeeze, as we are forming a little bit of a natural ascending triangle, with this 0.236 level. So maybe if this plays out, we could see a test up to this next volume support, from which, that would be pending reassessment to see if we'd move further up or if we would reject. But for right now, I am watching this 200 simple. I will be looking for short entries around here, even if that's like a small measured move to this ascending trend line or this bigger supporting trend line here and this volume support. So that is my bearish entry zone, my bearish inclination. Let's have a look at what some potential targets would be, I guess, statistically speaking. So I'm going to be using the fib extension here, from there to here, and these targets are going to change a little bit depending on where the pivot actually happens, as you can see, but right now, for consistency's sake, let's use that 200 simple moving average as a pivot point. So let's say we pivot somewhere around here. Our first target is going to be in that 50 to 61.8% region, which in my opinion might be a little bit low. I might be going a little bit conservative on this trade, as it is a little bit of an indecisive moment. Anything can happen. We are still technically in a greater uptrend, so upside action is probable, although I am leaning bearish until we start closing above this 0.236 level and this red trend line. So closing above that would make me probably flip my my bias to the bulls for the near future. Anyway, potential targets for this one, I'm going to be using the 4 hourly. For targets to the downside, for an intraday swing setup, I'm going to be looking for tests of this 200 EMA and the 200 simple. As you can see, the 200 EMA has been a good guide for these wicks down. Every time we've wicked down to the 200 EMA on the 4 hourly, we have seen a big rejection. So I'm probably going to be putting in my first take profit. On a very conservative note, somewhere above or close to this supporting trend line, along with this volume support. Maybe a little bit riskier side would be putting it somewhere along this 200 EMA. Second take profit, as we saw on the 1 hourly, the 200 simple moving average can be a huge pivot point. So my second TP is going to be set at around that 7920. Following that, maybe have a look at the 7600 region. This is a key level to be watching as outlined in the medium time frame video, and then the fully realized target is going to be in the lower 7000s, somewhere in this volume support. However, if you are looking to look a little bit holder, I do outline a couple additional targets on the medium time frame video. Okay, let's go back to the hourly here, and let's have a look at the bullish perspective. I'm going to hide this for right now, as that wouldn't really help, although that could be a potential, take profit level as well. But let's get rid of this fib level. And now let's draw another one from between our local swing low and our local, hold on, let me do it like this. Local swing low to local swing high. So although it might be a little bit too late for this, I'm going to still go through it, as it will, offer further evidence for this method, which I am thinking about doing a tutorial video on to add to my toolbox series. So if you think that's useful, please let me know and I'll come out with that. But I will be denoting the buy zone with a green outlined purple box. Once again, we're looking at that 0.5 to 0.618 region. So if we draw up our buy zone around there, that would have become, we would have realized we would have drawn out that zone after we saw this swing low, as that came last. So I would have been interested in this region for a small swing up, a bullish swing, especially playing, this would be playing devil's advocate, as the sentiment currently is to the downside. So I always like taking risks on these moves, as they usually can be rewarding to an extent. So that would have been our entry zone. As you see, we were consolidating the area a little bit. I would have probably been a little bit worried about this volume support, but as soon as we broke above it, I would have looked for any retests, especially coinciding with this, this rising trend line. So at that point, I probably would have made an entry somewhere around here, or even here if you wanted to wait a little bit. Profit wise, take profits, probably would have set this 90, 89, and 42 as probably 50% of my trade, take profit, just because whenever you're counter trend trading, I do tend to take more profits at the first take profit and move my my stop loss to entry. So that would probably have been my first target. But keeping staying consistent with our methods, let's have a look at what the fib extensions say. So let's say we bounced off of, let's call it the 0.5. Yeah, let's say that was our major wick, our last wick low before we pumped up. So as you can see, we're always going to be targeting that 50 to 61.8 region, which lines up nicely with right below this volume support. Let's have a look at what EMAs are there. Yeah, as you can see, that 200 EMA is brushing right along that 50% take profit region, or like the beginning of the take profit region. So I would probably set that as my first take profit, or my second take, I guess in this case my second take profit, for 25%, having sold 75% of my total trade amount. And then this is the fully realized target. I would only really hold this if tides, started to shift towards the bulls, which I'm not going to be considering that until we start closing above this 0.236 level. Anyway, that would have been the bullish perspective. As you see, we would have hit the first take profit already at this 0.236 level. And if you did like a high leverage move there, I mean, not that I'm advocating for high leverage moves, but when you're looking to scalp or little swings like that, that's usually the way to go. A 4% move, if you did a cross or 100x, that would have yielded some reasonable results. Although I do not recommend that if you're not an experienced trader. But it'll be interesting to see what happens at this 0.236 level. Like, this is technically an area of reversal, and since this is on drawn up from a larger time frame, this is a pretty significant level to be watching. So it'll be interesting to see if we get another daily close. This will have been the second test of this 0.236 level during this consolidation period. So I would look for, maybe one more test and then a breakthrough or a dump, especially to see how there's a little bit of a natural ascending triangle playing here. So we might see another break up, followed by a rejection, and then we'll see how low we can fall. Anyway, for right now, I am watching that shorting zone that I had drawn up before. I am going to be building a little bit of a short position until we can either close a daily, above this 0.236 level, or if we start, really gaining some momentum to the upside. But please let me know if this helped. Let me know if you want me to make a tutorial video on how to use the fib retracements and extension tools like I just did to find potential entries and targets. Thank you, guys.